The popularity of Buddhism has been growing recently in Russia. People are attracted by the peaceful nature and tranquility of the religion. But under the guise of Buddhism, some tricksters have begun to exploit the ideas of this belief system for their own underhand and selfish purposes, in violation of all the religion's precepts and teachings.
Just like me, he's very interested in women.
He took my hand and put it on his erect penis.
That's quite all right according to the rules of the sect.
At his request, I took him to prostitutes.
They don't want 47 million, they want to take away everything.
Our film crew has come to Novosibirsk and found former followers of the Yisong Kappa religious sect, which skillfully disguised itself as Buddhism.
Vang Chang Ting Lei is the name in his passport. He's a Tibetan, a man with considerable charisma, which attracts different kinds of people to the sect, to the organization, as you might call it.
I'm an entrepreneur, and besides my work, I've been interested in meditation since 2003. I've known Vanchen Tingley since 2005. He came to Russian Federation in 1992 as an assistant to the junior secretary of the Dalai Lama's office, the Tibetan Cultural Center in Moscow, as it's called. And later he was sent to give lectures on Buddhism in Buryatia, in Kalmykia and Tuva. He visited Novosibirsk during his travels and also began giving lectures here.
I was directly involved with the sect. Since 2002, I, like most people, I was going through difficult times. I tried to find something for myself, some refuge. And so I read a lot about Buddhism, became interested in Buddhism, and, by coincidence, ended up in a sect.
In 2005, Vanchen Tingley came to Novosibirsk to give lectures on Buddhist philosophy, and I went to these lectures. I liked the lectures. I started helping out, helping Geshe Jampa Tingley.
He asked me to be his driver and bodyguard in Novosibirsk and Ulan-Ude, almost until 2019.
I was a member of the Yisong Kappa organization for a long time. For about 20 years, I think. I observed gradual changes in the organization. At the beginning, everything was all quite respectable, nice and fine, but then gradually everything we were taught came down to serving our spiritual leader. We were told that this was the basis of everything, and that without this we couldn't do anything. And there were two paths of serving, either with your work or with your body. Do some work, hand over your money. Well, insofar as...
For those who were in this organization, he was an unusual person. I saw that everyone had to bow when he arrived and so on. I mean, he gets all kinds of honors all the time.
From 2007 to 2018, all over Russia, including in Novosibirsk, money was raised to buy a plot of land, 2 hectares, on the shore of Lake Baikal. Vanchen Tingley asked me to organize construction on this plot of land, and I built various buildings there, with infrastructure, electricity, water supply and plumbing. Everyone was happy until 2018. Mainly teaching was held there in summer, and around 1,000 people came there from all over Russia. First a summer house was built for him, he came and lived in it, and a summer temple was built next to it, where he gave lessons.
Igor sponsored and supported this organization for a long time. He spent all his time and energy to make sure there were buildings for meditation and books for meditation. He supported the whole structure of the Baikal Meditation Center. He financed it and developed it. And then he was given the choice. Either you give up your house, which was also built for meditation, and apologize for some non-existent sins, or you leave.
In 2013, I registered the Centralized Religious Buddhist Organization. It has 3 founders, 3 local religious Buddhist organizations. And according to the charter, we chose Vanchen Tingley as the spiritual leader. Therefore, at the moment, I know that in 2019 his status was the spiritual leader of the centralized religious Buddhist organization Jitsong Kappa. In the rest of the world, he does not have any status.
Initially, as a 25-year-old interpreter, he realized that if you are going to dress as a monk, you could gain considerable dividends just by wearing the clothes of a monk. And it didn't matter whether you were one or not. There are lots of examples of how he tricked people in Moscow.
As he spoke good English, he was invited to work as an interpreter in New Zealand to translate lectures on Buddhism. After a while, he took the monastic vows and passed an exam for the rank of Geshe. He doesn't have any pupils in India, and he doesn't give any teachings there. But in Russia, he does give teachings.
According to my investigations, Geshe Jampar Tingli never lived in a monastery, not for a single day. He was never a monk in a monastery.
Essentially, those are the rules of the sect, because there is a guru who everyone must obey without questioning him. People are not encouraged to think for themselves at all. This is punished. God forbid you ask some questions and take independent decisions. You'll be punished. You'll be scolded. You'll be mocked.
A Buddhist monk who gives a vow of celibacy must never have sex and shouldn't think about women.
I had quite a close relationship with Geshe Jampar Tingli. He saw that I'm also attracted to the same. I'm a lay person, in the sense that I'm not a monk. And I'm very interested in women. And just like me, he's also very interested in women. He had a constant need for them.
10 years ago, I started going to seminars at the Maitreya Buddhist Center. And there I heard about Geshe Jampar Tingli. When he came to give lectures in Novosibirsk, I was asked to give him a massage.
After a while, I got very jarred about how he would receive money for his lectures. It wasn't called payment for the lessons, but a donation, a voluntary donation. He was brought money. We gathered the money. I brought it to him in the hotel, and he counted the money. And he suggested we go somewhere to relax. By relax, of course, he meant going to prostitutes. That didn't particularly bother me. He's a man. Everyone has their needs. So it wasn't all that bad. But when we were going there, while he sat next to me in the car, he rang his wife, Ashikma. In fact, she's called Yulia Amagolonova. Ashikma is a Buddhist name someone gave to her. Or she took it herself. He rang her. "Oh, Ashikma, I love you so. How's our daughter?" I said to him, "Geshe, why are you doing this? So we are going to visit women, to relax. But why, when we're going to visit women, you call your wife and say, 'I love you'?" He smiled. "It's fine," he said. "There's nothing wrong with it. It's all right. The main thing is that she doesn't call later when I'm there."
In around 2005 or 2006, when the Dalai Lama visited Kalmykia, many women came to the Dalai Lama's office complaining that the teacher had forced them to have intimate relations with them, saying this is kind of a way how they can show their devotion.
After all the lessons, after any lessons, whether they were in Ulan-Ude or Novosibirsk, in winter or summer, we also went to prostitutes. I always took him to a brothel. Besides this, he would ask me to invite pretty female pupils, those who were considered his pupils, to give him a massage, supposedly. There were older pupils who were keen to give him a massage, because they knew what it was, a type of initiation, and younger, attractive pupils who didn't know what this meant. They would first give him a massage, and then he would take his clothes off and propose them intimacy. In Novosibirsk, this practically happened all the time. But sometimes it happened on Baikal also. There are women who are ready to confirm this, and indeed they have confirmed it. Some of them liked it, because it was a sort of initiation from the deity, a sort of tantric initiation, as he called it. Some were confused. Some were shocked.
I am an expert in Thai massage, and this is a technique that is done with your clothes on. Although when I arrived, he started undressing. I said, "Stop, don't undress." I showed him how to lie down. I made him a Thai massage. This is just a technique of kneading the body gently. He fell asleep. And when I stopped, he said, "Stop, come here." He asked me to lie next to him. All right, there's nothing bad about that if a person asks you to lie next to him. Although the discomfort started to increase, I lay down and he pressed me so close to him and said that it is very pleasant from a spiritual point of view. A man lying next to a woman, it balances energy and so on. And then he took my hand and placed it on his erect penis, and I was dumbfounded.
Yes, this fact has been confirmed. Maya Maligina was at a personal audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. She said that Vancheng Tingley had forced her to have intimate relations with him, because supposedly this was necessary to show devotion to the teacher. There's a separate case on this incident in the Dalai Lama's office. When quite a lot of information had been gathered, His Holiness, in the presence of other high-ranking members of the clergy, summoned Tingley and criticized him very harshly for breaking monastic vows and practically discrediting Buddhism. The Dalai Lama told him that he would have to take off his vows and that he should not have behaved like this. I'm putting it mildly. Those who were present say they have never seen the Dalai Lama so angry. Everything around was shaking because this was such a negative situation. So Tingley certainly isn't a monk, because the Dalai Lama told him he would have to take off his vows. Buddhists in Bharatiya, the majority of Buddhists, are members of the BTSR, the Buddhist Traditional Sankhar of Russia, which is headed by the Khambo Lama. And the Khambo Lama, when he found out that Vancheng Tingley had violated his monastic vows, and that His Holiness the Dalai Lama had criticized him so harshly, then he tried to distance himself from Tingley. He forbade him to go to places like Kurumkan, to give teachings or meditate there.
The women who talked about sexual harassment and rape were declared apostates of the teacher and expelled from the sect.
For example, in 2004, there was a Presidential Council on Religions in the Republic of Bharatiya, and at this Council on Religions, the organization of Geshe Jampa Tingley, Vancheng Tingley, was declared to be a sect.
There's also Yeshela Doi Rinpoche in Ulan-Ude. The Dalai Lama values him very highly. He is also a Tibetan Lama who came to Russia, to Ulan-Ude, and on the Bear Mountain he built a Datsun. In this sect, in the sect of Geshe Jampa Tingley, visiting this Datsun is categorically forbidden.
People who see discrepancies or inaccuracies, or who ask any questions at all, are simply ignored. The rest are forbidden to talk to them. To make sure that a person who leaves the sect doesn't cause people to ask questions or start thinking, the person is expelled completely.
In the sect, it was forbidden to express your opinion and ask the teacher a question or to question his actions.
This first occasion was probably in 2006. He, with his wife Ulia Amagolonova, we were sitting and talking, and they started telling me about an interpreter called Maya Maligina, that she was a very bad person and that I shouldn't talk to her. She had previously translated Vancheng Tingley's lectures for 8 years. She accused Vancheng Tingley of having intimate relations with her. The fact that she accused him of this meant she was a bad person.
In my opinion, it's inhumane. Imagine you communicated with people for 10 to 15 years. They were practically your family, and then suddenly you're cut off from them. And these people continue to be intimidated. You are isolated, so it is inhumane at the very least.
I was the chairman of the Novosibirsk Buddhist Center and the director of the centralized religious Buddhist organization Jitsong Kappa. Vanchen Tinglei's wife, Ulia Amagolonova, and Vanchen Tinglei himself first started requesting and then demanding that I expel people from the community without any explanation. That's quite against the Buddhist way. A person is expelled without any investigation. I didn't agree to it, and then such a resentment lurking on me. There are a few people, and I regret about it now, who I actually did expel because the teacher's wife didn't like them.
Those who were expelled and those who stayed in the organization, they believe there's something wrong with them. Not that something wrong with the teaching, some problems, or with the people who teach it. They believe the teaching is sacred, it's all unquestionable. There's something wrong with the person. I think this is self-gaslighting. You start trying to convince yourself that the teacher is right. He will purify your karma and another person's karma. So all this nonsense that starts happening, all of these quarrels, squabbles, gossiping and persecution. These people try to pretend it's all quite normal. It's good and even for the best. I think this is just a mental block. You feel one thing, you see one thing, and then you just sit for hours and persuade yourself that it's actually all fine. I think your mental state can't remain healthy in this situation. If a family joins the organization and one of the spouses is found to display insufficient civility, insufficient servitude, then the entire organization tries to pressure the other spouse not to have contact with this person.
In 2018, on Lake Baikal, a conflict broke out. A lot of children usually come to visit, around 50 of them. The conflict took place because of Vanchen Tinglei's daughter. She is growing up completely cut off from the world. She's surrounded by servants who constantly looked after her, so she didn't do anything independently. She was 12 at the time. She was fed with a spoon and dressed, and even when she goes to the toilet, everything that is related to a hygiene, she doesn't do it by herself. Her servants help her. And the children who came from other cities are already independent at the age of 12. And one of the girls looked at her, she was surprised and asked, "Why don't you eat yourself? Why don't you dress yourself?" And the daughter got upset and started crying. Amagolonova called me and said, "There are some terrible children, 5 or 7 of them. They upset my daughter. So these children need to be expelled, along with their parents, because they are not worthy to be here."
People who are mentally disturbed are worth their weight in gold because they have this fanatical belief. And they also try to convince other people that this is how things should be.
I said to his wife, "This is not a reason to expel people from the teachings. They've come from far away, they've paid money for tickets and so on. So I don't believe this is justified, and this is not Buddhist behavior." She said that I was wrong to think that I was irreplaceable, and she would make sure I was expelled. And from that moment, she started calling the Russian centers in Novosibirsk and so on, and say that I had violated the devotion to the teacher and that I should be replaced. She wanted to form a public opinion about me. And then, over 6 months, she formed an atmosphere so that all the Buddhists believed that I had violated this devotion. The initiator of all of this was Ulia Amagolonova. The idea was that since I was a builder, then that meant I must have stolen money. How else could it be? She had a lawyer with her by the name of Artur Gureyev, also a member of the community, so he's one of Vanchen Tinglei's pupils. She persuaded him to prove all of this somehow.
The leaders and main sponsors of the sect decided to sue Igor Rukavitsin, falsely charging him with embezzling money for construction.
In 2021, I received information that a lawsuit had been filed against me by Gureyev. The lawsuit stated that Gureyev had given Rukavitsin 90 million and commissioned 2 houses from him, but he didn't finish them and ran away. Gureyev ordered a valuation, and the houses were estimated to cost 26 million. So this meant Rukavitsin had run off with 64 million. So Guriev requested for Rukavitsin to be charged with unjustifiable enrichment of 64 million rubles. The sum came to a total of 90 million. It was Elena Budnik's money. She was a member of the board of directors at Otkritie Bank. Our lawyers took a look, and her bonuses were 50 million a year. This was her official source of income, so she could finance this.
These documents are confirmation that the contract was signed between Budnik and Rukavitsin. All the existing conditions of the contract were coordinated with Budnik. We have correspondence about this on WhatsApp by email. The correspondence was certified by a notary. It discusses the cost of work. It says here, house foundation, Lena, 1,948,759 rubles. Budnik, Elena Vladimirovna. This was correspondence with her. Here at the beginning is her phone number. She transfers the cost of this foundation down to the last ruble. And that's how it is for each sum. So the correspondence confirms that the parties met the conditions of the contract, what to build, in what time frame, how much it cost, and also concerning the payment procedure.
If we're talking about Artur Gureyev, for example, he couldn't confirm the source of origin. We asked him in court to confirm it. He didn't present any documents. We asked him to confirm how he transferred the cash funds to Budnik. How did he transfer them to Dekanskaya and Tsankov? He didn't present any documents that he transferred this money, but the court ignored this. What did they do? They made use of the following situation. In summer 2017, the Central Bank of Russia placed sanctions against Otkritie Bank, where Yelena works, and Yelena told me, "I can't transfer money to you directly anymore because I've got problems. A criminal case was opened against me. I'll give the money to third parties and they'll transfer it to you. These third parties are also in Moscow and Novosibirsk." I said, "All right, what can you do? Let's do it like that." So we agreed on the full price of construction. There's a document in her writing where you can see her estimates, and a handwriting analysis can easily show that she wrote it. So she and I agreed on the remaining price of construction. This was in November 2017 in the Moscow region. She said, "Okay, let's have the rest so we don't drag things out." I gave 30 million to Artur Gureyev, and I gave 15 million to Albina Dekanskaya. She is her friend. I don't remember precisely. And around 10 million to Dmitry Tsigankov, another friend of hers. And they'd send it to you, so she wouldn't have any problems too. I've known Artur Gureyev since 2013, when we needed a chairman of the Moscow Buddhist Center, and I introduced him to Vancheng Tingley, and so he became the chairman of the Moscow Buddhist Center. We were practically members of the same community. Yelena Budnik came and decided to help with money problems. She gave 30 million to Artur. Artur went to the bank, deposited the money in his account, and transferred it to my account. And a payment was registered, 2 payments for 15 million, money he had transferred to me. Now what he did is take statements from a notary, and Yelena Budnik writes, "This is Artur Gureyev's money. At his request, I commissioned construction from Rukavitsin." She did this for 2 reasons. The first reason was so that the central bank didn't start an investigation into the money. And the second reason was so that this little group, with Vancheng Tingley and Ulia, completely changed the contractor so that it was easier to manipulate the lawsuit. If Vancheng Tingley had been asked to speak in court, it would have been very hard for him to pull it off, because when Gureyev speaks, he can lie without blushing at all, either because he's used to this or because it's his nature. And the same goes for Budnik. If she had spoken, the court would have easily understood who the client was. So the first step of this brilliant scheme was to change the client completely. There's a notary statement that says this is Gureyev's money, that it's not her money. Dekanskaya also signed this statement, and Tsigankov does too. And in the materials of the case, it turned out that they practically conspired to change the picture. And on the other hand, there's the correspondence between me and Budnik on WhatsApp and by email, and there's the correspondence between me and Gureyev on WhatsApp and by email.
Judge for yourself if a person signs a contract with an individual for 91 million for the construction of 2 houses. Then accordingly, he should discuss the existing conditions of this work in some way, especially as Rukavitsyn did the work for Budnik for 2.5 years. For Budnik, not Gureyev. Gureyev says that he was the client according to the contract and that he paid a sum of 91 million rubles, but didn't reach an agreement on any of the existing conditions of the contract. So how could the parties find out about what to build, in what time frames, for what sum?
So, in general, the situation is as follows. A number of buildings were built, and Gureyev also ordered a construction of the house on the neighboring lot, and this is also indicated in the correspondence. But during the court hearing, he said, "No, I didn't order the house for myself. I ordered those 2 houses which Yelena Budnik requested, so I ordered these ones."
Igor put all his resources into these houses. Time resources, mental resources, financial resources. He put everything he had into building these houses because he was intrigued by the idea of creating a Buddhist meditation center on Lake Baikal.
House number 1, which was ordered by Vancheng Tingley, and in fact he lives there now, at the moment. 2 floors, an area of around 150 square meters, and premium class construction. It has fully automated systems, a heat pump, heated floor, and so on. And this is what it looked like on the 1st of July 2018. And so the scheme was changed completely. The scheme was that first the clients were changed. House number 1 was commissioned by Vancheng Tingley, who completely ordered it himself and coordinated all the details with me: shape, design, what the furniture would be. It was financed by Budnik. House number 2. This is the house that Budnik commissioned for herself. She agreed on everything with me and financed everything. House number 3. This is the house of Artur Gureyev. But Budnik, of course, didn't provide money for Gureyev to build this house. Vancheng Tingley moved into this house in August 2018. He lived there until March 2019. Yelena Budnik moved into the house in July 2018 and also lived there until February. So the houses actually began to be used in 2018. The electricity was also financed by Budnik. She agreed on it, but Vancheng Tingley commissioned it. And he also commissioned his private home in Ulan-Ude, or rather its reconstruction. And today this group says, no, the 90 million was Artur Gureyev's money. But he says, no, I didn't commission anything. No houses in Ulan-Ude or electricity. I didn't commission this at all. I commissioned 2 houses, House 1, House 2, and gave you 90 million. At the first hearings, he said, you just ran away. You didn't finish building the houses. I finished them myself. Then our lawyer asked him to provide the documents to confirm that he finished building the houses. He changed his position. He said, no, now we remember, so he was the one who finished building it.
If Gureyev claimed he was the client according to the contracts, then he was supposed to provide evidence of this. But I repeat, Gureyev did not present any evidence at the court hearing, not a single piece of evidence that he was the client and payer under this contract.
So of the 8 buildings which were built or put, he says, I only commissioned 2. I didn't commission the other 6, and the 90 million that I gave you, let's order a construction and engineering inspection. This will show the cost of the construction. The court appoints a construction and technical inspection. The inspection undervalued the cost of construction. But even if it hadn't undervalued the cost, according to the budgets and primary documents which are included in the case, then as only 2 buildings are being investigated instead of 6, it still means that I stole money. The cost of building 2 premium-class houses is 64 million, and there's no way I could have spent 90 million on these 2 houses. I have documents for only 64 million, so step number 2 is to deny the construction of the remaining 6 buildings. For some reason, the court was happy with this. Although there is evidence, I presented evidence, different photos, videos, reports, projects budgets, and so on. The evidence showed that the total number of building was 8. The court said, "This has no bearing on the case. The plaintiff said he commissioned 2.
There's not a single text or any mention of this in the correspondence between Gireyev and Rukavitsin. So the correspondence wasn't presented by Gireyev at all.
And so we'll only study 2. And when the construction engineering inspection was done, they managed to undervalue the cost of construction by about 1.5 times. And in the end, the experts estimated the cost was 43 million. So 90 minus 43 equals 47 million, which is unjustifiable enrichment. And I was liable to pay it. That was the scheme.
And the court, taking into account the fact that Gireyev did not present any evidence of a contract signed, nor evidence he had fulfilled it, nor evidence he had accepted the work or made payment, makes a decision to recover 47 million rubles in his favor, thus enabling his unjustifiable enrichment, the unjustifiable enrichment of the plaintiff.
At present, our lawyers are preparing an appeal to annul this decision by the Kubansky court.
The court arrested the property and assets of Igor Rukavitsin.
Since September 2021, all my personal assets have been arrested. All my bank accounts have been arrested. All cash funds, all cards, cars, real estate, i.e. land plots, apartments, houses, and the shares in all my organizations, everything I own, they've all been arrested. They've cut off the oxygen, and this is preparation for this scheme. The scheme is to arrest all property, and then court bailiffs sell everything as cheaply as possible. And the goal is to destroy the person who is unacceptable to this system. All the cash funds I received from Yelena Budnik for construction, I divided into 3 parts. One part was sent to the centralized religious Buddhist organization. Another part was sent to the Restcom company, which is responsible for construction. And the third part was sent to Mebelprom, which manufactures furniture. Why? Because the houses were fully furnished, and all the cash funds were officially transferred from my account to these 3 organizations. I see that the group of 6 people, Vancheng Tingley, Yulia Amakolonova, Artur Gireyev, Yelena Budnik, Albina Dekanskaya, and Dmitry Tsigankov, entered into a conspiracy, but Vancheng Tingley plays an important role in it. And they entered into this conspiracy to extort property and practically to take it away. So this is fraud through the court system. When the court system is so easily deceived and they seek unjustifiable enrichment.
This was supposed to be about spreading Buddhism, and it all ended up in extorting money, an illegal takeover. Because what started happening back in 2019 was a pure illegal takeover.
I can say if we're talking about the complaints are against a group of people. The fraud scheme was the following. A group of people obtains a court decision to level some sum. But injunctive measures are leveled against all my property. It's all arrested. I can't do anything with it. As soon as the court decision enters into legal force, all this property will start to be sold. They want to take away all my property. They don't just want 47 million, they want to take it all. In the course of the court hearing, I made Artur Gireyev the following offer. I said to him, "Look, here are the documents. Here are the initial documents, the expenses. Take them and look at them. If I stole something, I'll give you your money back. I'll return as much as I stole." But Artur said to me, "The court will sort it all out." So they're not interested in the truth. They're not even interested in what the sum is. Any sum suits them. The main thing is that I supposedly stole something. Why do they do this? To realize this scheme. A scheme when all the property of the debtor is arrested and sold. And to destroy the person. To show the other members of the organization, the other fanatics, that the teacher is all-powerful, and if anyone goes against him, the same thing will happen again. From the very beginning, I got the impression that the court was biased towards this case. I have specific proof of this, the correspondence that is certified by a notary, so I presented it in court. The court did not submit it into the case. Why not? First the court said, "Oh, the plaintiff was not familiar with it. I can't submit it." So we gave the plaintiff this correspondence, they read it. And at the next session, the judge said, "No, we can't submit it because I don't trust the internet." This is a direct violation of the law because the law states that evidence that was properly obtained from the internet is permissible evidence for a court investigation.
In the correspondence with Elena Vladimirovna Budnik, all the stages of work were reported by Rukavitsin at the end of construction, and all houses on which construction was completed were also reported at the end of construction. He reported on the foundations, electricity, interior finishing, all the stages of work, to which Budnik replied, "Okay, accepted. I'm happy with everything. I agree." And after Budnik had fully commissioned the houses, she also wrote about small comments, small defects,
which also shows that she was the one who accepted the work under the contract, not Gireyev.
Throughout the entire year, we tried to submit the correspondence into the case, which shows who the client is, who the payer is, who the investor is, what sums were agreed on, and what was built and where.
In the email correspondence between Budnik and Rukavitsin, there is evidence that the house design was agreed on. So Rukavitsin sent Budnik two options for design of the house, her house, for agreement. She agreed to one of these projects. The plan for the second house was also agreed on. Budgets on both houses were agreed on, as well as construction schedules, and even the electricity supply system for these houses, for electricity, water supply and plumbing. So all the significant conditions for execution of contracts were agreed on between the parties.
The court refused to enter the materials into the case. Later, with great difficulty, we sent the correspondence through the Justice electronic court filing system, but when it got there, it was no longer possible to submit it to the case. It is now part of the case, but in the ruling, the court did not accept this correspondence. It did not examine it and wrote, "The correspondence is not accepted as evidence." So the evidence that I presented, several hundred kilograms of documents, was not studied by the court.
We can see that people are simply being treated like dirt, and not even because they show disrespect. This is all about manipulation and forcing people to give away their money, to spend their time and all their resources for the good of this family.
You look at the people who come here. A lot of people I know come here to hear a lecture, to hear philosophy. They say, "Max, all that stuff you pray to there, it's not for us." I look at them, and a year or two goes by, and they become like this too. They've already changed. I say, "Don't do that. It's not like that. Look at them." But they're already hypnotized.
Gireyev said to me, "You don't understand how the court system works. I've already reached an agreement, so whatever decision you make, the decision will still be in my favor."
Despite all the facts and evidence of fraud and sexual harassment in the false Buddhist sect of Yisong Kappa in a number of Russian cities, the sect continues to work and flourish.